Elon Musk reveals what's really coming in October. There's something about October that's been weighing heavily on my mind, something that's been stealing my sleep night after night. It's a reality most people won't grasp until it's too late. If you want to understand what's truly unfolding this October, drop a comment below saying, "Ready," if you want to know what's really happening in October. This message isn't for everyone. Almost every night, I find myself awake at 3 a.m., staring at data on my phone, numbers that tell a story few can interpret yet. October 2025 will not be like any month you've experienced before. It's not about a single event but a convergence of critical systems in our daily lives all shifting simultaneously. Let me share what the data reveals. Last Tuesday, I was at the grocery store. Ahead of me stood an elderly woman who had to put back her medicine. "I just can't afford all this anymore," she told the cashier, her hands trembling. I quietly paid for her items when she wasn't looking. But I kept wondering, what happens next month when prices climb even higher? I can't help everyone, but that moment has stayed with me. That woman represents millions who are unaware of what October holds. What's hardest about this knowledge is watching people plan for November and December as if everything will remain normal. My mother called recently, excited about Thanksgiving plans. My neighbor is already buying Christmas gifts. A coworker is saving for a spring vacation. They all assume the world will function as it always has. But the data paints a very different picture. Starting in October, 3 vital systems we rely on will begin to change in ways most aren't ready for. First, the money system. Not the complex stock markets, but the simple act of buying essentials. The same $100 bill that covers your groceries today won't stretch as far in October, not by a little, but noticeably less. I first spotted subtle shifts about 6 months ago: companies quietly adjusting delivery schedules, government meetings rescheduled earlier, key players moving money in unusual ways. Last week, I received confirmation that solidified my concerns. I sat in my kitchen at 2:30 a.m., reading the data repeatedly, hoping I was wrong. I wasn't. I couldn't sleep, thinking about those on fixed incomes, like your parents, who have no idea what's coming. Second, everyday products. Some items you take for granted might become scarce. Not everything at once, but critical goods, medicines, certain foods, home repair parts, could be hard to find. I've been quietly preparing my family with long-lasting food, essential medicines, and some cash kept at home, not just in the bank. My kids have noticed. My daughter asked why we're storing extra water. How do you explain that without causing fear? I told her we're just being extra cautious. But children sense worry even when it's unspoken. Third, energy. Electricity, heating, and fuel may become less reliable. Not massive blackouts like in movies, but smaller, more frequent disruptions that complicate daily life. I helped my elderly neighbor after a brief outage last week. Her medical device needed resetting, and she was scared and confused. I kept thinking, what if outages become more common in October, last longer, or happen during cold weather? Carrying this knowledge is heavy. When friends talk about their fall and winter plans, I smile but wonder if those plans will hold when systems start to falter. The people most aware of these coming changes aren't average citizens. They're insiders, government officials quietly revising emergency plans, financial advisors shifting investments, supply chain managers ordering extra inventory and making backup plans. They're not panicking or building bunkers. They're making sensible adjustments based on information most don't have. I've spent my career spotting patterns others miss. Now, I'm seeing patterns not about business opportunities but about how we live day to day. A conversation with a top food distribution executive confirmed what I feared: major disruptions starting mid-October, unlike anything before. Problems with food transport, refrigeration, and delivery all hitting simultaneously. He wasn't panicked, just preparing calmly. What makes October unique isn't a single system breaking down but multiple systems under pressure at once, causing cascading problems. Energy hiccups disrupt food delivery. Rising food costs reduce money for other essentials. Medicine shortages worsen health issues. Each problem amplifies the others. I think about the most vulnerable, elderly living alone, struggling families, those with health needs, children depending on overwhelmed adults. These faces haunt me at night. That's why I'm sharing this now, not to spread fear but to help you prepare practically. Stock up on non-perishable food, ensure you have necessary medicines, keep some cash at home, and build connections with neighbors. They may be your greatest support. These steps aren't extreme or costly. They're sensible precautions for any disruption, whether a storm or a systemic shift. The most crucial preparation is mental. Those who will navigate October best won't be the wealthiest or best stocked, but those who adapt quickly when things don't go as expected. I see my children playing and know they'll grow up in a world different from mine, not worse, just different, where flexibility matters more than rigid routines. A recent conversation with my mother was tough. Her calendar is full of travel and family events for November and December. She's confident everything will be normal. I wanted to warn her but feared causing unnecessary worry. Instead, I suggested she keep backup plans. Her half-concerned, half-dismissive look is familiar. Most people sense change but resist believing it. She reminded me of past worries I had that didn't materialize. That's true. But the evidence for October is stronger than anything I've seen before: clearer patterns, more signals, a specific timeline. I worry about her medicine cabinet, her retirement funds, her isolated neighborhood. If October brings what I expect, her carefully ordered life could become complicated quickly, not from a single disaster but from multiple small system failures. That's what keeps me awake, not fear, but concern for those unprepared for a world where reliable systems become less so all at once. I can't convince everyone. Some will dismiss these warnings until they face the changes themselves. It's human nature to struggle imagining a future unlike the present. But for those listening, there's still time to prepare: food, water, medicine, ash, neighbors, backup communication plans, ways to stay warm if heating falters. Most importantly, prepare mentally to be flexible, patient, and creative. History shows those who survive great changes aren't the richest but the most adaptable, those who let go of how things should be and work with how they are. October is coming, ready or not. The question is whether you'll face it prepared or unprepared. I'm sharing this because you deserve the chance to prepare, even if it turns out unnecessary. The cost of preparation is small, the cost of being caught off guard could be huge. Remember, this isn't about fear, it's about readiness for a changing world. Last night, I sat with my son under the stars. He asked if the world would be different when he grows up. I said yes, change is part of life. Humans have always adapted. Are you scared, Dad? He asked. I thought carefully. I'm concerned, I said, but not scared. We can handle change if we prepare and face it together. Children often accept change better than adults. They haven't built their lives around fixed systems. That's the mindset I'm embracing for October, not panic, but preparation, not isolation, but community. The world after October won't be unrecognizable, but it will challenge those unprepared and reward those ready. You now have information most won't understand until after the changes begin. What you do with it is up to you. I want to share a story that shaped my thinking. Last month, I met Margaret, a 92-year-old woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me. She noticed me analyzing patterns I've described. She approached and said, "You look worried, young man." We talked, and I shared my concerns about October. Instead of fear or dismissal, she smiled with calm wisdom. She lived through the Great Depression and told me her family noticed warning signs months before the crash. Her father, an observant man, took simple steps, stored extra food, saved cash, planted a bigger garden, built strong neighbor ties. She explained how people reacted emotionally. Those caught by surprise felt victimized and angry, while those warned prepared mentally and practically, facing challenges with resilience and community spirit. She took my hand, surprisingly strong despite her age, and said, "If you see something coming, sharing it isn't fear, it's a gift. The gift of time to prepare." of agency instead of helplessness. Even if the changes aren't as severe as feared, building resilience is never wrong. Margaret shared her father's journal from 1929 to 1933, documenting early warnings, preparations, and the emotional journey through those years. The greatest gift he gave wasn't resources but helping people understand they could adapt and rebuild. Her father was an ordinary engineer, not wealthy or powerful, just observant and caring. Before we parted, Margaret said the people who thrived weren't just those with resources but those who kept hope, helped others, and saw opportunity in change. She squeezed my hand again and said, "If you warn others, give them more than fear, give them a vision of how to not just survive but find new purpose." Margaret's wisdom has guided me. Preparation is mental and emotional as much as physical. October will challenge many unprepared people but also create opportunities for those who adapt, let go of old expectations, and find new ways to contribute. Share this message with someone who needs to see beyond the usual narrative and understand what's really coming. Subscribe for insights most won't have until after the changes begin. What signs have you noticed that suggest October will be different from what everyone expects? This isn't about one dramatic disaster. It's a quieter thing, several everyday systems bending at the same time until daily life feels unfamiliar. I saw the first hints months ago: subtle schedule shifts, small price moves, managers moving meetings forward. At first it was easy to write them off. But over the last few weeks the signals converged. They told the same story from different places. And the picture they painted kept me awake. Last week at a grocery checkout, an older woman in front of me started putting her medication back on the conveyor. "I can't afford it this week," she told the cashier, voice trembling. Her hands shook like someone trying to keep a boat steady in a swell. I paid for her when she wasn't looking, then walked out with a knot in my chest. That woman could be your neighbor, your aunt, your parent. She's the face of millions who could be blindsided when October arrives. Here's what the data is showing: 3 shifts to watch for, and why they matter. First, money at the moment of purchase. I'm not talking about the stock ticker. Think about the small, daily thing: your wallet, your grocery run, the dollar that has always paid for everyday life. The numbers suggest the buying power of cash and everyday savings will fall noticeably. Not a single headline event, but steady, hard-to-see erosion across many purchases. Businesses are quietly adjusting their logistics. Some institutions are changing where they hold funds. Advisors to wealthy clients are shifting positions in ways that don't make the evening news. When those subtle moves line up, ordinary expenses add up fast for people on fixed incomes. Second, availability. Not everything will vanish from shelves at once, but expect shortages in certain categories that matter: specific medicines, particular foods, replacement parts that keep homes and cars running. Supply lines aren't a single chain, they're many linked chains. When a few links strain, those products can be delayed or priced higher. I heard from a distribution contact who said, plainly, prepare for bottlenecks beginning in mid-October. He wasn't yelling, he was organizing. That calm preparedness is the only kind worth watching. Third, energy and services. These aren't Hollywood blackouts. Think instead of repeated small interruptions, longer repair times, localized outages that make daily routines harder. I watched a neighbor struggle after a short outage. A medical device needed a reset and she was terrified. If these blips become more frequent when the weather turns, people who rely on steady power will face real risk. What makes October dangerous isn't a single catastrophe. It's that several modest disruptions may happen at once, nudging into each other until daily life becomes a puzzle. Higher prices shrink budgets, fewer store shelves make choices harder, and service unreliability makes basic tasks more complicated. For someone on a fixed income, that triple squeeze is the difference between managing and not making it through the month. You may be thinking, who else sees this? It isn't only me. People with information I don't have access to directly have started repositioning. Emergency planners are adjusting timelines. Supply managers are increasing contingency orders. Financial advisors are nudging clients toward liquidity, not because they're panicking, but because they want options. None of these actions screams catastrophe, they're smart, quiet steps taken when professionals spot a new risk pattern. I've spent my life building systems that notice small differences before they grow. That ability is a burden sometimes, because knowing means you can't look away. I find myself watching calendars and conversations. I walk past relatives making holiday plans and wonder whether those dates will still run the same way. My mother was planning a big November dinner and nodded when I suggested she have a backup plan. She smiled and said, "You always worry too much." Maybe. But sometimes worrying early is what keeps people from needing to panic later. Preparation doesn't need to be dramatic. It shouldn't feed panic. It should buy breathing room. Start with these simple, practical steps that help whether the problem is a storm or a temporary supply squeeze. Stock a small reserve of non-perishable foods that keep without refrigeration. Refill or review prescriptions early and ask your pharmacist about alternatives. Keep some physical cash at home for a short period in case normal banking access is slower than usual. Learn who your immediate neighbors are. Small communities solve big interruptions together. Make backup plans for charging phones and keeping essential medical devices running. Practice mental flexibility. The people who cope best don't cling to how things should work, they adapt to what actually is. I think about who will suffer most if October arrives the way I expect: older adults on fixed incomes, single parents stretched thin, folks who rely on uninterrupted medical care. That's why I'm sharing this now. Not to frighten, but to offer time, the most valuable thing when systems change. Let me tell you something that steadied me. A few weeks back I met a woman in her 90s named Margaret who carries a quiet, lived wisdom. She'd lived through scarcity before. She told me how her family prepared long before markets collapsed decades ago, small actions, calm choices, and a mindset that allowed them to rebuild. She said the secret wasn't the size of the pantry, it was the willingness to adapt, to help neighbors, to find new opportunities when old routines no longer held. That stuck with me. Preparation without panic, action without spectacle. Margaret's father wasn't famous. He was observant. He noticed small shifts and took reasonable steps. When the harder days came, their family didn't survive by hoarding alone, they survived by helping others, pooling resources, and staying mentally calm. You don't need to act like the sky is falling. You just need to act like someone who wants to be ready. The cost of a little preparation today is small. The cost of being caught utterly unready could be enormous. October will arrive whether we expect it or not. The question is how we meet it, surprised and scrambling, or composed, prepared, and connected. I'm sharing this because I want more people to have the same small advantage the people I mentioned gave their families: a little extra time, some practical steps, and a readiness to adapt. If anything in your life depends on steady power, consistent medicines, or a fixed income, consider this a friendly nudge. Start the simple preparations now. Reach out to an elderly neighbor. Reassess your immediate cupboards. Keep some extra cash accessible. Draft a plan for a backup heating or charging option. None of these is extreme, they're sensible. And if October turns out gentler than I expect, then the small effort you made will still have helped: more connection, a modest cushion, a calmer household. If it arrives with the strains the data suggests, that same small effort could make all the difference. I'm telling you this because watching these patterns and doing nothing felt impossible. I'd rather be called cautious than silent. If you want to help someone prepare, share this. If you already have plans, perfect, review them. If you're skeptical, that's human. But even skepticism can coexist with small, practical actions that protect the vulnerable. Change is coming. Be ready for it. Not out of fear, but out of care, for yourself, your family, and your neighbors. That's the real preparedness Margaret taught me about, not storing everything away selfishly, but strengthening the people around you so we all get through the hard stretches together.